Bickley and Marotta Mornings. Arizona Sports, the local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
Points are very important in basketball. There are point guards, point forwards, points per game, 3-point shots, 2-point shots, and 1-point shots. And here in Phoenix, we take it even further because we are at the point of no return. And that is because Bradley Beal has reportedly been benched. The official explanation is that the team needs a spark, and they do. In fact, they need a lot more than that. They need heart. They need hustle. Charles Barkley says they stink. They've given up 5 40-point quarters this season, 3 of them in the past 10 games. They can't be bothered to play defense and aren't big enough to do it even if they wanted to. So what does benching Beal do? In a perfect world, it changes chemistry for the better on the court. In the real world, it makes Beal unhappy, maybe enough to waive his no-trade clause and give the Suns a Hail Mary shot at acquiring Jimmy Butler. What a debacle. Beal didn't work as a point guard. He doesn't work as a starter. And this big three is starting to look like a pretty reckless idea in hindsight because of that positional overlap between he and Devin Booker. That's pretty clear now. I am really curious to see how Beal responds. I'm curious to see how the Suns respond. And I'm very curious about this reported tension in the locker room in a year we thought the Suns had their vibe right. And it feels like our reckoning has arrived starting tonight in Philadelphia. All right, today's Bickley Blast brought to you by my great friends at Chapman BMW who make luxury attainable. Find them online at chapmanbmw.com.
I would love them to bring Bradley Beal off the bench because, I think it's tough for all three guys to do what they do best when they're on the court together. They kind of do a my turn, your turn type thing.
Yeah, they do.
I would love to see them bring a serviceable point guard in, play at a much faster pace with KD and Booker starting. And I would bring Beal off the bench for instant offense when one of those guys come out. Now, I think you can play them in the fourth quarter.
That was Charles Barkley 11 months ago.
Wow.
So that was only a few months into the Bradley Beal Big Three experiment.
That was February 5th of 2024. 11 months ago.
That's unbelievable.
And look, I'll admit it, when Charles suggested that on this show 11 months ago, it was like, let it roll off my back. It's just Charles being Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he saw this early on.
Yeah.
And even with the change in the cast of characters this season, again, that was with last year's crew. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a point guard. Now they have 2.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's going to happen. The report from Chris Haynes is out there that Bradley Beal will come off the bench, as will Jusuf Nurkic tonight. And, what does this do? You asked the question in the splash. What does this do right now for a struggling team? First and foremost, it sends a message to everybody on this team that I can't say nobody. Few people are exempt from paying for poor play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, Kevin Durant's not coming off the bench.
No.
Devin Booker's not coming off the bench.
No.
But it's a show to everybody else. Hey, this is Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm. We mean business. The standard is not being met in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're doing something about it. We're not going to just hope against hope that this situation turns itself around.
But after the game Saturday in Indianapolis, which was close for most of the game, the Suns really have a hard time getting over the hump and grabbing leads in games, which is weird. They have not led for a second of either one of their last 2 home losses. They led for 2 minutes of that game in Indianapolis on Saturday. But Mike Budenholzer offered this on how do you get out of a slump.
Yeah, I mean, we just, compete. That's what we've talked about from day one. We just got to compete, dig into that, lean into that spirit, lean into that mindset, and that'll give us our best chance.
But that's the problem. Nobody's leaning into that mindset.
No.
It was evident Christmas night against Denver.
Mm-hmm.
That was the outlier. There is footage out there. You can find it. Pacers are pulling away in the fourth quarter, under 2 minutes to go. Pascal Siakam takes a shot and 4 Suns watch the ball bounce off the rim. Nobody moves, even when an Indiana Pacer swoops in for an offensive rebound and a putback.
Yeah, it was.
This team doesn't do those little things. And you could say, all right, they're getting killed on the offensive glass. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
They don't box out.
No. They're not competing hard. They're not playing hard.
And I wish I would have noted it when I was on vacation. I heard an analyst talk about how boxing out is just almost non-existent in the NBA. If you look at the stats over the years, the number of box outs per team is way, way down. But the Suns have got to be at the bottom of that list.
Really? So it's a league-wide epidemic, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah,
because there's so many three-pointers and long rebounds.
Well, there is that. Yeah, that's a good point, too.
There is that, but it's still a fundamental part of rebounding. It's one of the first things you learn when you're learning the game of basketball.
That's right. Shield your guy.
Yeah,
and get the rebound.
Find a body.
Find a body, box him out, and get the rebound. And if everybody finds a guy and finds a body, you are going to get the rebound.
So I agree with Mike Budenholzer. If they lean into this, we got to play harder. They can win some games, but they're not leaning into it.
No.
And it's evident every single night.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the idea now, it's going to be real curious to see, as I said in the blast, what the response is across many different fronts here. Because if the Suns come out and play a spirited game tonight, maybe even upset the 76ers on the road, well, that's going to make Bradley Beal feel even worse, I would think, individually. Because you'd be like, okay, let me rephrase that, because that would make it seem like Bradley Beal's not a good team player. What I'm trying to say is, like you stated earlier, Bradley Beal has got a certain status in this league, and he's got a certain pay level that this is not something that he envisioned being possible when he came here. And so where this whole thing goes from here, there's a lot of people who are tying this together with the Jimmy Butler developments, which is Jimmy Butler has now been suspended, and the Heat are listening to trade offers. So Jimmy Butler has done enough to let the Miami Heat know, I'm going to embarrass you guys. I'm going to embarrass you guys with dispirited, awful performances, lackluster stuff, and I'm not going to try hard. So I guess in that regard, he'd fit in perfectly in Phoenix.
Yeah, but that's the thing, too, is Jimmy Butler is a moody player. Mm-hmm. And he's shown this over the course of his career at different stops. This is the guy that a lot of the Suns fan base is pining for. Mm-hmm. A guy who's basically quit on his own team.
Yeah, twice. He's done it a couple different times now. So you're exactly right. Now, again, I think it speaks to our desperation, our recognition that this big three just ain't it, and our recognition that Jimmy Butler would give the team some things it really needs. And so I think that people are looking past the particulars in this, his age and all that, and just trying to wish this into existence. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are people in Miami who said, listen, they're going to listen to offers, but Jimmy Butler's got a player option for $52 million next year. Mm-hmm. The Miami Heat, there's part of the Miami Heat that think that if we call his bluff, he's not going to bow out of that $52 million. We could enact that, then trade him in the offseason if we want to. So the point I'm trying to make is I don't think the Miami Heat are going to be coaxed into doing something out of desperation.
No. And it's almost it's weird in that we've got come to this point in the NBA where you always heard, well, you can't let him walk for nothing. They might be okay with letting him walk for nothing because then it clears up about $50 million.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So,
but I wanted to say one more thing about Bradley Beal.
Sure.
I'm very curious to see what this looks like because of the status thing we've talked about. Mm-hmm. But for the Suns to turn this around in the now, no, there's no help coming in the next 48 hours. They got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And to figure that out, whether it's as a starter or as a reserve, they got to get more from Bradley Beal. Mm-hmm. They have to enact him to be a more productive player. This is not all on Bradley Beal. This is a team-wide malaise that's happening with this team right now. I'm glad to see that Mike Budenholzer had the chutzpah to make this. You can't just sit. This is one of those stretches that's so ugly. You can't sit by idly and watch it happen. You have to do something to try to change the mix.
Yeah,
and he's trying.
I totally agree with that. And then as for what these other tensions might be, what do you think? Too early to tell? Another segment? Save it for later?
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.